Good evening and welcome to the coffee table. So because of the Lahore Literary Festival, we've had richness in terms of intellectual capacity in our city. Lahore has always been rich in intellectual capacity. There is a lot of metaphysical existence to our city. So we have today with us Aisha Farooqui. Aisha Farooqui is the Consul General at the Consulate, the Consul General of Pakistan in Houstan. Aisha is a career diplomat with 20 years in the diplomatic service. So we're going to talk about Aisha, about herself, about her book, Musings of a Nomad. That's an interesting title. So Aisha, welcome to the coffee table.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I should say hello to her too.
Yes, you should.
Thank you.
So happy you're here.
And I believe you were Milawing Thana before the program started. So your brother is in the diplomatic service
yes,
also.
he is, and she knows him and his wife, and yes, they are. They were also neighbors in Islam.
So will I be able to get a word in sideways then?
Yes, of course.
I will.
She now ek to rishtedari, and then she's a writer.
She's a writer. So she's a writer too.
Oh,
right?
wonderful.
So you know, I'm lucky if I can say and ask a few things.
No, you
have
ask.
A conversation.
I'll just interject.
You just interject. So I should tell us about what took you to the diplomatic corps to start with, right?
I think I've had an interest in different cultures and languages. So I think if I were to point any particular point in my life, I think when I was in school, so I wanted to learn French, and I joined. I was 12 years old, and I joined the Alliance Française in Karachi.
Yeah.
I come from Karachi.
Right.
So
a very cosmopolitan city.
Yes, indeed. And then I studied French throughout my school and my FSc.
You speak fluent French?
I do.
You do. And how many other languages?
I know some Turkish.
Okay. You served in Egypt.
Also.
Yeah, also.
But
Morocco?
my Arabic, no.
No, not Morocco? Okay.
My Arabic is very, very rudimentary. Okay. So I cannot claim that I know Arabic with any confidence.
Right.
So I think that I had an attraction to it. And then for my undergrad and for my master's, I studied international politics.
Okay.
And I think joining the foreign service.
What school was this? What university?
So my schooling was at St. Joseph's Convent and College in Karachi.
Okay.
And
so you're familiar with student biryani then?
Ji. And my master's was from Quaid-e-Azam in Islamabad.
Okay.
So once I graduated from Quaid-e-Azam University, so sitting for the CSS and joining the foreign service.
It was your first choice.
Ji, bilkul, bilkul. So it was a natural progression.
Right, natural progression.
And of course my interest was
You like people, you like cultures, you like food.
I like traveling.
You like traveling.
But like in my brother's case, it was very strange. He took the CSS exam right after his bachelor's, so he was very young.
Right.
His first choice was DMG.
Ji.
And
he just wanted to be a Lord Sahib.
No, see, I mean, no, he's not really a typical feudal, but he just thought, you know, that was what people opted for.
It was a trend.
It was, yes. And so what happened to him was you know how he writes and how he speaks and everything. You're familiar with that.
Yes, I am.
But in his English essay exam, I've always told people this story. He got such bad marks in English essay. Can you imagine?
That's very surprising because he's actually very good.
Yes, exactly. He's somebody who should be writing books and speaking all over the world. He's that kind of.
Right.
I think his English, even at that age, was too highbrow for the examiner. So, as luck would have it, because of that one essay that he wrote, Child is Man's Father, I still remember.
Wow.
And when he told me, he said, okay, this is what I wrote. I said, how did you begin this? I said, okay, which language is this? This doesn't sound like English to me. So anyway, so the next thing was foreign office. Yeah. But then when he started working there, he realized that's what he was made for. So unlike you, he wanted to go into a completely different direction. But
I was doing a bit of reading about your book, The Musings of a Nomad, trying to understand who Aisha was. So it's really about an internal journey that you have externalized in a way, in an external context, right? So,
yes, to some extent.
Where has it taken you?
So Musings basically started as an internal questioning to external challenges.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people who really believe that whenever you are faced with an external challenge, you need to turn inwards to find a solution.
Yeah.
And
that's very Sufi-ish.
I think that's where it's coming from.
And that's why you're interested in Rumi and Iqbal?
A lot, yes. A lot, huh? And also because I've had the privilege of being in Turkey.
Yeah.
And
so you went to Konya?
Numerous.
Oh, numerous times. You are a lucky one.
I think I'm very privileged. I'm blessed. So, so whenever there is a challenge, and there has been several along these years in different parts of the world, it has been my my practice to turn inward and find an answer. Yeah. And one of the things I did was to write. Okay. Writing is something, as you would know, this is my bread and butter.
Right.
But this kind of writing is new to me.
It's new to you.
This is spontaneous, it's very simple.
And very personal.
And I believe these are very short essays. They're not very long.
No.
Yeah, they're just bite size.
I'm weary of writing long memos and briefs.
Right.
So,
do diplomats write long memos or do they write short ones? We do. You write long memos?
We make big, bulky briefs.
But it's also the best expression of who you are, writing, or especially writing.
Julian Assange would have us
like
believe otherwise, you know. He says it's all about the short crypto.
Well, that's a different communication altogether. Yes.
Okay. And that is something that is not talked about.
So that's how it started.
Right.
The bulk of these essays was written in Turkey, and later some in Houston. And once they were done, and I felt the need to publish them for the simple reason that there's a great diversity in the themes.
Yes.
So I felt that because these are universal themes, that I'm sure many people sit and think about these issues in the quiet space of their minds.
Which issues?
Such as, how do you deal with being lonely?
Yeah.
Oh,
what is solitude?
Interesting.
And if you're raising children alone and you don't have any support network, what do you do if you're a new parent? Or if you have...
And you're traveling, you're in constant motion.
Absolutely.
Even if they are in a place for 3 years, it's a very difficult life.
Yes.
So you're trying to readjust.
It has very wonderful aspects, being in Foreign Office, but it's also...
I think this is a very unique career. As I said in this afternoon also, this is not a career for the timid.
Yeah, it is.
It demands a lot because it impacts every facet of your life.
Absolutely.
Every relationship of your life gets impacted by the choices that you make.
Do you constantly feel like you're being looked at? You're in a fishbowl, you know, everything you say, everything you do, where you go, what you eat, everything is going to impact.
So one of the jokes that I used to have, once I was having an argument with my sister, and she said, "Can you be diplomatic, please?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I'm off duty."
That's a good one. That's a great one.
They are...
So 24/7.
They are very conscious.
Yeah,
yes,
I can imagine.
Everything, you know, if I ever ask my brother something, that
you also have a lot of interest.
They have to be politically correct.
Yeah. You also have a lot of interest in the social context of things, right? In terms of development, in terms of people's rights, in terms of, you know.
I do, and I think I really believe that the world of international diplomacy or global politics is a world of abstract in a large sense. There's a lot of jargon, there's abstract concepts. But when you bring it down to...
It's all about people.
It's about people. It's about human relationships.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think sometimes we lose that focus, and I try not to lose it. Because, and especially in my recent experience in Houston, the Consul General's primary function is public. Yeah. And the diaspora community.
You're telling Pakistan's story, of taking Pakistan's narrative to a people.
And of course, our people in America.
Is it difficult right now to be a Pakistani diplomat in the US?
I think it's always been challenging.
Have the attitudes changed? Since...
Not to an extent that we would like. I think we have a long way to go.
Is that policy or is that people? Is that the government or is that the general public?
You see, Faisal, I think primarily the problem is that the perception of Pakistan and the reality of Pakistan, there is a huge gap.
We agree.
So So the perception of Pakistan overrides the reality of Pakistan
So true.
in the minds of the American people in this instance.
Right.
And our job is to narrow that gap. And we do it through various ways.
Right.
We do it through public diplomacy, through cultural diplomacy, through official
So how often
contacts.
do you get that opportunity? Do you have Pakistani writers, Pakistani musicians coming through, performing for people, giving them a context?
There is quite a lot of traffic. In New York, Washington, definitely
Yes,
greater.
there is.
But I've tried to have
Houston is
some
an
in
important
Houston.
place in terms of even the diaspora, the Pakistani diaspora.
New York,
Absolutely.
I remember, they always have a lot of people coming in from Pakistan.
That's
We
true.
recently had somebody over from the city of Austin.
I
Right?
see.
And there's actually an exchange program.
Right.
So they've been taking people from Pakistan,
That's right.
especially young entrepreneurs,
Yes.
and taking them to Austin, right, to spend time there, right? And we were having this discussion exactly, and saying how do we make it a little more engaging? You know, how do we make it a little more in terms of benefit to both, right? Not just young Pakistani kids going there, experiencing things, meeting people, meeting probable investors, but also the city of Austin benefiting, right? So we try to narrow down and say what works here, what works there.
Sure.
So it is about people, isn't it?
It is.
At the end
it
of
is.
the day.
And
But when they
whether
meet you, when they meet a normal, regular American who doesn't really get a chance to travel, and they are not really exposed to the rest of the world, say for
Not
instance, like
many of them.
Europeans are.
They're
most
quite
of them,
insular.
Most of them don't even have, okay, not most of them, but many of them don't even have a passport, for
Correct.
instance. So when they meet you, they do realize that Pakistan is not really what they thought Pakistan is. Does that happen?
that happens a lot to me,
happens.
especially in Texas. Again, as I said, the perception is so different. The stereotype that they have in their minds of the Pakistani woman, I shatter that completely. So I have been asked on my face if I am an aberration.
Right.
That I'm just one odd Pakistani woman diplomat. So I tell her, no, I've got clones, many of them, in the foreign ministry. We have so many women diplomats, which is a surprise to
There's an
them.
interesting book.
We had a woman foreign minister.
Of course.
And prime minister.
And the current foreign
You tell them
secretary.
that.
Rabia Akhtar, I don't know that you are familiar with the name, Dr. Rabia Akhtar. She teaches at the University of Lahore, right? And she's recently written a book, The Blind Eye, right? Which is about the US turning a blind eye to the development of Pakistan's nuclear program. But more interesting is Rabia's view on women in the diplomatic services and bringing a feminist perspective, right, to the whole being of diplomacy. And she says women will do better, right? They'll have a better world. So we're going to take a short break, come back, and we'll talk more about Musings of a Nomad. We have a nomad on our coffee table, right? So I'm not the only one. So there are other nomads too. So just take a break and stay with us when we come back. Welcome back. So we're talking to Aisha Farooqui, who's the Consul General in Houston. And we were talking about people. We're talking about the gap between Pakistan's reality and perception, and how your primary role is to narrow that gap.
Correct.
So where are we getting to it? Does it make your job really, really difficult when you have a Pulwama? What happens?
Again, whether it's the recent incident in Pulwama in Indian-occupied Kashmir, or whether it is a bilateral matter between the United States and Pakistan, it is our job to reach out to as many people as possible and across different fields of influencers and opinion makers, whether they are lawmakers, congressional representatives, or senators,
academia for that matter.
or whether it's the think tanks, or whether it's the academia, or whether it's the business community.
Yeah, business community is very
because
important.
any instability affects them directly. So this is our job, to reach out to them and to explain Pakistan's stance on whatever the situation we are faced with.
Do they accept it? Do you face opposition, or are they receptive to listening to your point of view?
They are. But this is, I have, whatever interaction I've had in the 2 years that I've been there, they're open to listening to Pakistan's story. But we are not the only channel of information for them. So what we have done and what I have done in my interactions is that I have invited them to come to Pakistan.
Right.
To see for themselves.
That's the best thing to do.
To see for themselves and not take whatever I am explaining to them. And I think there is an increasing realization in the lawmakers at least, and the business community, that there is a shift and that Pakistan needs to be viewed more closely rather than be brushed aside or taken by the media, whatever the media is churning out about Pakistan.
Because that's what I always say, that it's not about showing the soft side of Pakistan, it's about showing the real Pakistan.
I think it's about experiencing the real
Pakistan.
Exactly.
Pakistan does not have one story. Pakistan is 22 crore people, 210 or 220. I always write it as 220 million people. Is it 210?
It's around 207 according to the official census.
So let's just
you can stretch it
220.
Yeah.
Let's,
Okay. If you insist.
No, 200. I'll go to 200. So all of us cannot have one story. But what happens is it's our politicians and it's people who speak about Pakistan. If it's former diplomats, if it's writers, intellectuals who have a voice in other countries, they talk about Pakistan in a certain manner, and that is kind of contrary to what people like you, people who are in the Foreign Office, the career diplomats, are trying to do. Does it make a difference? You know, for instance, if you are talking to somebody and they would give you a reference of, but you know, so and so in Pakistan has written this, and it has been published in the New York Times or Washington Post, and big, huge newspapers with huge publications all over the world. Does it affect what you're trying to say?
Well, you see, we've had challenges in our bilateral relations with the United States. I'm not going to sit here and deny that, of course. Many times, our objectives have been similar, but our methods to reach those goals have differed.
Of course.
And that's where the crux of our differences and divergence lies. So when there is a difference of opinion, then it is our responsibility, and also what I've tried to do is that it is important to build the context. And sometimes they lose the context. They do not know the context. And it's easy to pick out something out of context and give it a certain turn.
That's so common.
But once you lay out the geopolitical context of a certain incident or event or a policy decision, then when it's rational, it makes sense to them and they understand. So the neighborhood that Pakistan finds itself in is an extremely tough neighborhood.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
And not many people in America know that, at least those who do not
they don't
have
know
a direct link.
Yeah, they don't
within,
understand the geography as much. Huh?
The geography of it, the difficulty of the border with Afghanistan. You know, so I think those things need to be laid out to them in detail, and I found receptivity.
But Mr. Trump's simple answer is build a wall. Right? He shut down government because he wanted his wall.
And you know that Senator Lindsey Graham said that, well,
that was so
build a wall, well, look at Pakistan. Pakistan is building a fence on the border with Afghanistan.
But his comments were very positive, and since you live in that country, he's not somebody who's very fond of Pakistan in the sense that this is a Republican, and they have a very hard stance vis-a-vis Pakistan. They seem to have a hard stance ever since what's his name, Trump came into power. But even now, after Pulwama, some Indian journalist asked him a question, and he said, the only thing he said was, I hope both these countries,
cannot afford a
both these countries talk to one another. And so he didn't really give a negative response about it.
Basically, there is a growing realization that we cannot deny the fact that Pakistan has a role to play.
You folks have a great role in that.
We do
the Foreign
bit.
Office.
We try.
Donald Trump is committed to pulling out of Afghanistan. He's almost pulled out of Syria. He's committed to pulling out of Afghanistan. How do we see it? How does Pakistan see that? Right, in terms of the challenges that those are likely to come up, right? Because we still have a rest of Afghanistan. We do not have a very settled neighbor on a western frontier and a very long frontier. So it affects us directly.
You see, Pakistan's position is very clear and unambiguous that a negotiated settlement led by the Afghan people themselves and all representatives. The Taliban, the Afghan government, those are the people who need to talk to each other to end this conflict that has gone over 4 decades. So there is no other country that wants peace in Afghanistan more than Pakistan. The instability there has robbed us of tremendous opportunities for growth over these 4 decades. So, and I think there is a realization both that Pakistan is genuinely making efforts to facilitate the peace process that is currently underway, and there are several There are several formats that are being worked out, and we are there to do our part, but we cannot do it alone. It has to be a shared responsibility of the international community, led by the Afghans themselves. So this is our position.
Do you see a real effort happening this time with Zalmay Khalilzad and all the
I think there is.
But the negative commentary that is consistent from Afghanistan, the Afghan leaders, does it affect what Pakistan is trying to do when it comes to the US working with Pakistan to change the status quo in Afghanistan? Because there's always something very negative.
It's not an easy
it's a conundrum.
Negotiation, not at all.
But it's ongoing.
It's an enigma wrapped up in a riddle.
I'm happy to hear that it's a continuous process.
For the people of Afghanistan, I mean, there's got to be an end.
This is what I was going to say.
One of the essays in your book is a kind of, it's about your 2 daughters, right? Your 2 teenage daughters and relationships that you have with them, right? Is that?
I don't know which one you're referring to.
Quest for a relationship?
The perfect relationship.
The perfect relationship.
The perfect relationship does not, it's not to do with parental and children. It isn't. It has to do with relationships, marriage. In general, yes, of course. So yes, there is one that, as I said, there is a tremendous diversity in the themes of the, because the title says it, Musings of a Nomad, Essays on Life and Living.
Life and living.
So I think relationships, I have called it the holy grail of human existence.
It is, without a doubt.
So relationships would have everything, romantic relationships.
Yes. A perfect relationship is a quest that I think everybody in the world embarks upon at some point in time.
The word perfect is non-existent. It shouldn't even exist.
Strive for it.
That's why it's the holy grail.
It's the holy grail. It's not easily accessible.
Near perfection is...
So you've been to lots of places and all that. So what's the best sunset you've seen?
Oh my God. And I have a habit of, I like gazing at nature. I like long road trips and I look at the skies. I think Turkey.
I was going to say it's in Turkey. As soon as you asked her, I had a feeling the kind of connection you just expressed that you have with Turkey.
Yes, I do actually.
So
Turkey has great geography. It sits on the crossroads.
Beautiful landscapes.
West and east. It's beautiful in terms of
the history,
the diversity of the landscape. People. Right. I've had the good fortune of traveling through Turkey at a very young age, and not just going to the big cities, but also passing through the. I was with my father.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
So
not a romantic
journey. No. I wasn't let out alone. So it was a very interesting journey in the warmth of the people. I mean, they were just warm. They were just different.
Oh yes.
Right? I felt that like I was in Fata or somewhere in the frontier.
No, truly, they feel for us.
Disrupting your very, the kind of conversation I would like to continue, but I want to ask her something. Do you think Pakistan and the US would ever have a relationship that is beyond Pakistan fighting wars in Afghanistan and Pakistan, the US?
You just made us mercenaries. No, we're not. Of course, there's a lot happening.
So, do you think it will change in some way? That I'm not saying it can never be an equal relationship, but still, Pakistan and there are bilateral interests, and there can be trade, and there can be a number of other things.
Absolutely, and there is already.
So, and things will change.
That is the objective. That Pakistan should not be viewed through the prism of Afghanistan.
Right.
Pakistan, in its own right, is a country big enough, important enough.
Sure.
to have an equal give and take bilateral relationship.
Yeah, I had a huge issue with FPAC, the hyphenated name that was given to this region. That I thought that was quite, still, I thought it was unfair.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to take another break and come back to this, and try to explore this a little more. So just join us after the break. We have a lot to talk about. Welcome back. Before we took a break, we were talking about the relationship between Pakistan and the US, because we were talking to the Consul General of Pakistan in Houston. So there has to be a trajectory, right, which heads in a positive direction. Do you see that happening? There seems to be a little bit of warming up. There is a bit of understanding that, yes, Pakistan plays a very significant role in the neighborhood that it sits in. Do you see that happening? Do you think we can build on that?
I think there is a realization on the part of the US administration, and we see some early signs of it.
Right.
There's a lot of work that needs to go into this on both sides.
Yeah.
And I think the foreign minister's visits in September, October were pointed towards that.
Right.
We want to restart the dialogue that we had with the United States, the strategic dialogue on 8 segments, which covered an entire spectrum of bilateral interaction.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So trade, investment, security issues, etc. So we want to revive that.
So there is the intersection between security and development.
Right?
Well, you see, there is an entire menu of interests that bring us together. It has to move
beyond Afghanistan.
Indeed. So this is the bilateral menu that we have, and we want to engage with the US on these
But we have
issues.
a Prime Minister who talks more about trade than aid. Right? That's where he would like to head. And I think there is a case for that. I work at a university where there's a lot of discussion going on about how to increase that kind of engagement. Like I mentioned, so we had the city of Austin, and we recently had the city of Detroit also come over.
Okay.
And there were discussions about what could happen, the Pakistani community there,
create
the kind
linkages.
of, yeah, absolutely. So the Pakistani community does play a very significant role.
It does. It does.
Right?
We have a very strong
there is an
community.
entire generation of Americans who have only seen Pakistan or have heard of Pakistan through the prism of Afghanistan. All they know about Pakistan is that there's this bad country, and there are terrorists, and they are doing damage to the US soldiers in Afghanistan. And we would really like that to change, because as my favorite example is my son is studying in New York right now, and his first roommate was this Jewish young man, American, and he wrote him a note at the end of the year when they changed the rooms. He said that he had no idea about Pakistan. He said, I wasn't looking forward to, not because he was a Pakistani, but he was somebody who wanted to be alone, and he didn't really like the idea of sharing the room with somebody. But he said, I'm so glad that we met and we've spent all this time together, and now I look at you as a brother. It was so wonderful. He said, now whenever Pakistan is going to be mentioned, I will be thinking about you.
What do you want to see from us, from Pakistanis, right, in terms of, let's say, the kind of narrative that we should be building and reinforcing, right, with books, with movies, with maybe drama, right, just putting out our story?
You see, one of the motivations for putting Musings of a Nomad out there is that this is my belief, that we are passing through a period where there is increasing polarization along lines of race, color, culture, religions. The world is extremely polarized
right now.
And it is our duty, I feel it to be my duty, both as a human being and as a diplomat, that I need to find those commonalities that connect me to somebody who does not share my culture, religion, color or nationality. Because we have a link of humanity. All human beings, 7 million of us.
You talk about the other in a very interesting context.
Yes, right? Because I think the...
You say deep down inside we are human beings.
We are, and we are connected at the heart level.
Deep down?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we are.
In the sense.
So if you remove these differences,
the universality
the context
of
that we may speak different languages, eat different food, dress in a different way, but we are at the core.
absolutely.
Right? At the heart level, like
no,
you
the
say.
suffering is the same, the pain is the same.
The concerns are the
concerns
same.
are the same.
So if we remove the surface differences and we connect to other cultures and other people, you would find that there's so much more that you can
Yes, that's what he's saying, that would it help?
That is the story.
What's your favorite restaurant in Houston?
My favorite restaurant in Houston, there are Pakistani restaurants that are, there's My Kolachi in Houston
Yeah,
also.
My Kolachi is a famous one.
Yes. But then there is, my favorites are Season 52, which is a continental one.
Okay.
And you know why I like it? So, we live in Texas.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, portion sizes are
I know.
big.
Yes.
Season 52.
Just like the 10-gallon hat.
Season 52 provides you normal portion sizes. And that's my draw.
So the normality of it.
Yes, the normality.
So
of
the
it.
entire family likes small.
Yes,
helpings.
absolutely, absolutely. I have two daughters.
Unlike my brother's family. You know, they are fond of food, that family.
So my daughters are both very, very food
Health
conscious,
conscious,
very
okay.
health conscious. They're teenagers. They are millennials.
Yeah.
So, so they are very
You're not
careful.
even millennials, they're Generation
But
Z.
millennials,
Yeah,
but they,
the elder one is millennial and the younger
But
one
they-
is Gen Z.
they eat everything and they are still healthy and they look good, and for some reason, I think it's the age.
No, they don't
Teenagers-
eat everything.
No,
At
they
least
don't.
not in my household.
The world is going vegan, isn't it?
Yes.
Increasingly so.
People
Yes,
are
increasingly
very
so.
conscious.
No, my son's friend, he's an Indian and a vegetarian, and now listen to this. He's in New York and they're roommates now. He's a vegetarian and he's very thin. I'm very concerned about him because I talk to him on the phone at times, and mothers being mothers everywhere. And so I asked him, why is he so thin? He said he's a vegetarian and he doesn't like vegetables.
He doesn't like vegetables.
So I ask him each time I speak to him and his name is mentioned, okay, is he eating? He said, yes, he eats pizzas with cheese.
Right.
So can you imagine being a vegetarian?
Not like
So how's the LLF experience?
It's my first ever
First ever.
experience. I had heard a lot about it. LLF has carved a place for itself, not just in Pakistan,
Yeah,
but
they've been-
abroad as
yeah,
well.
they've gone abroad.
It's a brand now. So I found it fascinating because it provided a space for creative expression.
Yeah.
For writers, for
And the
thinkers
audience
to
is
share
good too.
ideas and thoughts. And I think that's marvelous
Yeah.
because it speaks and contributes to the health of the city, the intellectual health of the city and the country
Yeah.
by extension. So I was
And a
very
very
happy.
responsive-
and
Do we have
very
any,
responsive
I haven't been to
audience.
Houston. I've been to the US and a few other states and cities. Is there anything in terms of a theater culture in Houston?
Yes, absolutely. There's
There
a
is.
theater district.
There's a theater district,
There's
right?
an entire district.
So how
yes.
about a bit of here in Houston?
Certainly, certainly. I would love to talk about it and see how and what we can do to bring some of it
Yeah.
to Houston, of course. I mean, this is part of, building relationships through art,
Yeah.
through culture.
Absolutely. Nothing works really better, does it?
I think it
Yeah.
opens doors.
Yeah, it opens
certainly.
doors. Music is so universal in terms of
Absolutely.
its expression.
Absolutely.
Right? So
Brings
that,
people
And
together.
people in Lahore, the audience was responsive. As I
Very,
said, the audience is
very.
quite good in Lahore.
Very.
They ask questions.
So
and
for my book launch today, the Italian ambassador to Pakistan and his wife was sitting in the first row, and we were talking about the book. And when the talk ended, he came up to me, he introduced himself to me, and he said, whatever you said resounded so much. I understand what you went through. And I was like, yes, I mean, as a fellow diplomat, he said, every word you spoke, I understood.
he's quite active on Twitter. Like
Yeah, he
there's-
slapped me on the wrist just
the
recently.
Italian
There's the
ambassador.
hand
Okay.
there, but,
So
but the
I-
best
I
one is the
mentioned-
German ambassador. But you must have heard about
I have
him.
heard,
Martin
yes, yes.
Everybody loves him.
So the Italian ambassador, I had tweeted and said, I hope ExxonMobil finds oil drilling offshore. And he said, it's actually ENI. I said, yes, you're right.
Yes, it is
It is
ENI,
ENI, and it's
leading
not
it.
oil, it's gas. It's interesting. Thank you very much, Aisha, for taking out time to be with us on the coffee table. We will be hopefully following up with you and maybe get something across to Houston. Maybe do a program there someday or get you on our show to talk about Pakistan.
You're very welcome.
From a lens that we need people to look through. Right? We want them to look at Pakistan through that lens. Right? And do tell us, right, what is it that we can do from here?
Absolutely.
Right? Indus is designed to do this. Indus actually has been designed as a voice, right, that takes the story out. So that's why we talk about the Indus saga.
Okay.
Right? We talk about a land which is rich in culture. Right? We go back 5,000 years. And if you talk about Mehr, we're talking back even beyond that, about 9,000 years. So there's so much to offer.
True.
Yeah.
No, it's wonderful to meet you. Anybody who's talking about Pakistan, who's working for Pakistan in any other country, has my vote, has my support.
Brilliant.
Always.
Thank
so
you
we are
so
hoping,
much.
I believe Aisha is going to be back in Pakistan in a while. And from what I hear, she is one of those diplomats who's slated for bigger things. So we hope to see you as secretary, as a foreign secretary in a couple of years from now.
And write more books, please.
Yeah, and write more books.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us this evening.